Am I the jerk for taking back my keys to my grandma's house so my sibling couldn't use them? I, a 20-year-old female, am living in another country for university. Since rent here is so high, my grandmother offered me a place to stay in exchange for household help and some financial support from my parents. However, my grandmother is very old, aggressive, and stubborn. Things escalated a couple of months ago when I asked if I could buy a drawer for my room, and she got mad and threatened to throw me out and make me homeless. We had an argument, and I decided to leave and move in with a friend. My father sometimes visits and borrowed my spare keys but left them at my grandmother's. My 16-year-old brother will be staying with her soon and using my keys. I wanted to see him and arrange a lunch to get my keys back, but he ignored my calls and messages for weeks. When he finally responded, he said, "I don't want to see you, thank you." Bye. I was confused, so I called my mother, who explained why he's mad. Basically, I have 2 parrots that I had to leave at home when I moved. My parents agreed to care for them, but I suspected they were just doing the bare minimum, so I often checked on them during visits. One day, I saw an Instagram story of my brother and his friends partying in my room at 2 a.m., shaking the parrot's cage. I sent the story to my mother and decided to leave my parrots with a trusted friend who is now taking care of them. My brother got in trouble because of the story, and he's been mad at me since. My parents are on vacation and indifferent to the situation, so I decided to take back my keys from my grandmother's place before my brother arrives. This means he would need to ask my grandmother to let him in and wouldn't be able to stay out late because she goes to bed early. I felt this was reasonable given his disrespectful behavior towards me. He abused my pets, posted it online, and then gave me the silent treatment for weeks. There is no way I'm lending him my keys. I went to my grandmother's, reconciled with her, though I'm still staying with my friend, and took my keys. My mother thinks this was petty. While I partly did it to teach my brother a lesson, I also needed my keys to access the house after he leaves. My grandmother goes on vacation the day after he leaves, and the keys would remain inside the house, so I wouldn't be able to get in. She'll come back in September. This seemed the only viable solution since my brother refused to see me. My mother believes I should have tried harder to make amends because my brother is younger and doesn't understand that he's wrong. I don't care. He's 16 and ignored me for weeks without even telling me why he was mad, which I had to learn from my mother. He abused my pets and posted it online. He's lucky all I did was send the story to my mother. After arguing with my mother, who now has to deal with my brother not having the keys, she called me an asshole. So, am I wrong for taking back my keys and preventing my brother from using them? Nothing you have done here makes me think you are the jerk. Your brother and friend are immature and selfish assholes for scaring your parrots. At 16, he's old enough to know better and should understand that actions have consequences. So keep your keys and relax. Your mother is wrong. A 16-year-old is certainly able to understand why he's wrong if his parents had bothered to teach him. Would I be the a-hole for not adopting my ex's child? Am I the asshole for not adopting my ex-child? I am a father of 4 children, 1 daughter and triplets. During 2021, my ex and I split up during the COVID pandemic, but I remained in the house to help support her with the children. 1 month after our separation, she got a new partner and brought him into the house to live with us. I slept on the couch. During my time there, my ex and her partner were always arguing and splitting up. Her partner blamed me for all of the issues they had, and I also received death threats from him. Even though I stayed out of the whole situation, I was focusing on the children and housework. After a few months of living like this, I moved out on my own. Not long after, I had a phone call from Child Services asking me to collect all of the children from her parents' house, as my children had been removed from her home due to the abusive relationship with my ex and her partner. I have had the children with me now for 3 years and have full custody after a long fight with everything. During this period with Child Services, my ex got pregnant with her partner. She ended up losing the child to social services due to neglect and inconsistency. I received a call asking if I wanted to adopt my ex's child, as she and her partner could not care for the child due to a lot of issues. Both sides of my ex's family cannot take the child either due to health and other issues. I feel I cannot adopt him as my ex put me and my children through a lot of issues, such as being abusive to me and not looking after the children properly. I have explained to Child Services that if I take the child on, I would not treat him fairly and would have some sort of disgust, even though none of it is the child's fault. My ex keeps calling me, criticizing me for not adopting her child, even though I have had no involvement in the child's life. She argues that it is my children's sibling and that he deserves to be with family. I have explained to her that I want no part in raising that child, as it is a reminder of what she and her partner put me through. I have told Child Services that my children and I do not want anything to do with that child, as we would have both my ex and her partner harassing us all the time. In my opinion, you have done nothing wrong here. Sometimes you have to say no, despite having sympathy. The child isn't your responsibility, and taking on another would mean less time for your own kids. For everyone's sanity and well-being, it's best to keep your toxic ex completely out of your life. Am I the jerk for not wanting my sick parent to live with me? To start off with, the title sounds horrible, but let me explain. My father was abusive growing up, physically, emotionally, and mentally. He was an alcoholic almost my entire life. Once my mother passed away when I was 9 years old, he reached his breaking point and just gave up being a parent. He was emotionally absent, but he paid the bills. In his mind, he thought he was a great father. However, even though the bills were paid, most of the time we didn't have any food. I didn't have health insurance or dental care, so as a child, I was neglected. There were moments when my dad acted like a father. We possibly had a couple of conversations where I felt happy, but now as an adult, I realized that I made excuses for him and was actually more of a parent than a child. Once I was 17 or 18 years old, I moved out and tried to stay away. When I was 19, I moved back for a brief time, but I finally moved out a couple of months later as the alcoholism was as bad as it had ever been. Fast forward to when I was 24 years old, and I received a call from my father's best friend, who is the greatest man I've had in my life other than my husband. He informed me that my father was in the hospital. For context, I am in the military. I had texted my dad briefly and found out 2 weeks ago that he was thinking of going to the hospital. Apparently, he was now in the hospital with all of his stuff packed in a car. He had moved out of the motel he had been living in for almost 2 years and planned on trying to get a place with me 3,000 miles away. I have concluded that if he is dying and they assume he may have cancer, I could help him. However, I am unsure if I want to and would rather put him into a home if the situation worsens. I was initially going to help him get back on his feet if he was going to get better, but I have come to realize that my boundaries were being taken advantage of, and I was resorting back to being the parental figure for my father. He has always wanted someone to take care of him since he had absent parents as well, but I am his child, and I feel that this isn't my responsibility. Maybe this is just a vent as I try not to burden others, but am I the asshole? You did nothing wrong here. Children don't owe their parents a home, especially when the parent failed in their responsibilities. It's okay to live your life and do what's right for you. And if that means your father going into a residential facility, then so be it. You can help without having him live with you, and it's perfectly fine to stand your ground and say no. Am I the jerk, telling my partner they suck with money? My wife, who is 30 years old, and I, who am 32 years old, got into an argument yesterday regarding her spending habits, and she has given me the cold shoulder. My wife likes to buy things and is an impulsive buyer. She gets this from her mother, who is the same way. I, on the other hand, look for deals or do not mind buying things secondhand. When I go grocery shopping, I price match or find things on sale. She does not care about the price and just purchases items. For example, she will buy 1 pound of strawberries from the grocery store for $5.99 when there is a price match for $2.99. She does not purchase expensive things, but the things she buys for herself or our daughter just add up. I budget and she exceeds it. She also wants to travel the world, but does not take into consideration our current debt. Yesterday, we found a photographer on Instagram to do photos for our daughter, and the photographer has preset packages similar to the ones for school. She sent us the proofs of the photos, and we can only pick 2 poses per package. My wife likes 10 of the 30 pictures and wants to buy multiple packages. I told her that I would call the photographer to see if she would be willing to send the raw photos of the 10 poses so that we could print whichever she would like to print. She replied with, "Why are you always so difficult? Just pay for the packages." I replied that it would be close to $700 for these prints. I then told her that our budget is always disrupted because of this type of behavior, as she is irresponsible with money. We had a back and forth argument. She called me an asshole and slept in our daughter's room last night. We did not communicate verbally over the phone or through text all day. Her sister texted me, saying she is on my side. Her older sister and younger brother think I am the asshole. When she came home, I received the silent treatment for the majority of the evening. We did not have dinner together. When I was washing my dishes, she left her plate on the stove and I turned to her to say, "The raw pictures for the 10 pictures cost $400. She called me an asshole and walked upstairs. I left the house, which got me thinking, am I the asshole? It's understandable that sometimes the mental load of hunting for discounts can be exhausting, and one shouldn't hold every instance of overspending against someone. However, spending $700 on photo packages because of reluctance to ask for something cheaper does show a lack of financial sense. It's probably better to address these issues as they happen rather than letting them build up. If her habits are causing a problem, she needs to rein in her impulsive spending. Am I the jerk for not watching my child who could have drowned? Yesterday, my husband, who is 43 years old and whom we will call Jack, invited over his friend, who is 40 years old and whom we will call M, and his friend's wife, who is 39 years old and whom we will call J, and their 2 children, ages 4 and 6, for a BBQ. We have an in-ground pool, and we have a 2-year-old, whom we will call EM and J arrive, and the children immediately want to go in the pool. I put E in her puddle jumper and spend the next 2 hours or so by the pool, watching all three of the children. The food is ready, and the children get out of the pool to eat. When they finish eating, they play on a small trampoline in the sandbox and with other various toys next to the table. I am sitting at the table with Jay, and we are both having a hard seltzer drink. It is my second drink, and I believe it is her third. I am not drunk or tipsy since my first drink was an hour and a half prior. Jack and Em go into the garage where the beer is, and Jay asks me to check on Em to make sure he is not chugging beers. His drinking is a point of contention in their marriage. She says she does not want to check herself because he will tell her she is nagging him. She also says that she will watch me while I do this. I agree. My friend, who is 39 years old and whom we will call C, arrives at this point. She sits at the table with us but is on the phone while this conversation takes place with Jay and me. I am gone for maybe 3 minutes and walk back out to the yard. C is sitting at the table. I ask where E is, and she looks at me confused and says she is not with you. Then we hear E screaming. We both run around the corner of my house to the pool, and I am horrified to see my 2-year-old on a mat-type float in the deep end of the pool, alone, with no floaties on. Her leg is hanging off the edge of the mat. I immediately get her off. She was able to get on it, I guess, because it was floating close to the side of the pool. My friend C is apologizing profusely and is very upset. I am in a state of shock. I come back around the corner, and Jay is walking out the back door of our home with her 2 children. I immediately tell her what happened and ask her what the hell she was thinking. She kind of laughs and says, "Oh my God, that's my bad." I am furious and say, "Are you serious right now? I don't know why you would have left my daughter." She looks at me and says nothing. My guess is maybe she assumed C would be watching her. I take E in the house. I just want everyone gone. Jack comes in and I tell him what happened. While he agrees with me, he then says I should go out and say goodbye to everyone. I refuse, saying that I don't want to see Jay's face. He then gets upset and says that I shouldn't have left our daughter with her, that I am ultimately responsible for her, and that I could at least say goodbye because while it was upsetting, nothing actually happened. It's the next day, and we are barely speaking. I am actually more upset about what could have happened and feel guilty. I am not sure if it was my fault because I knew Jay was drinking, and maybe I shouldn't have left E. So, am I the asshole? You did nothing wrong here, but Jay and your husband are. It's ridiculous that Jay just disappeared without making sure C was aware of the responsibility. And the husband, who didn't look after his kid for a minimum of 2 hours, saying the OP is responsible for their daughter and absolving himself of any responsibility, is hypocritical. Why was he in the garage instead of near his kid? Am I the jerk for telling my parent I wouldn't have given them any money even if I had any savings? My mom, who is 44 years old, has been out of a job since March 2024 and has been relying on my and my stepdad's paychecks to keep the house running as all the bills go out of her account. It's been tough, especially with the current cost of living crisis. I make around £1,700 sterling after tax and give her £1,000 to 100 every month while she's unemployed. She's really struggling even with this, as it's not a replacement for her salary, which is much more. Usually, she and my stepdad split the bills, and I save and spend my pay. She was also unemployed for 6 months last year, and I also helped her then. Lately, she's been really scolding and arguing with me almost every other day about how I had no savings, and if I did, I would have been able to help her more. I usually just keep quiet as I know she's under stress from not having a job, and it really has knocked her self-confidence, but I had enough after months of this. I told her that I give her about 2/3 of my salary, and that even if I had any savings, I wouldn't have given them to her because that's my money for my future. She got really upset and angry at this comment and said I'm an ungrateful daughter who doesn't even pay rent but can't help her in her time of need. I don't pay rent because I wanted to move out and get my own place for a while with a friend, but my mom didn't want me to, so we came to an agreement that I'll stay at home on her wish, but I'm not paying rent. I also gave her my entire trust fund I received when I was 18, which was about £18,000 sterling, because we had just moved and the house needed some renovations. And I've given her at least £1,000 sterling every month that she's been unemployed. I'm wondering if I'm the asshole because I don't know if bringing up the fact that I wouldn't give her any of my savings was a necessary comment considering I don't have any, and it just made an issue over money that doesn't even exist. I know not having any savings is irresponsible, and I'm learning to manage my money. I was a teenager with a paycheck, and I went wild for a long time before I learned the need for saving. You are not in the wrong here. She's clearly using you as a free paycheck, and at 44, she should have her own savings. Depending on your local rent, moving out might actually be cheaper for you. You need to learn to say no and stop enabling her behavior. Thanks for watching. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist in the description.